McKinnon. David McKinnon.
は非常にいいバッティングをしています。レフトへ伸びていくか、下がって狙いった見上げた、デビッド・マキノンホームランです。
Welcome to Pacific Swings, where we bring you inside the baseball stories that cross oceans, the players, the culture, and the game that connects two worlds.
I'm Dave McKinnon, 32nd round draft pick who tricked some people and made it all the way to the MLB, and then on my way to Japan in the NPB, and then to the KBO in Korea. Hit a few homers in 3 different countries, and still adjusting to retirement life and talking through microphones instead of swinging at fastballs and chasing off speed pitches out of the zone.
What a great intro that is. I'm Jasper Spanjar, a journalist and filmmaker, and the guy who convinced him that it actually wasn't that bad of a trade-off. Today we're talking with Dietrich Enns, who managed to play professional baseball in 3 countries without mastering any of the languages as badly as David did.
My Japanese was functional. My Korean was not great.
Dietrich currently plays for the Detroit Tigers AAA team after playing in the NPB in Japan with the Seibu Lions, where he's David's teammate in 2023. And then to Korea's LG Twins in 2024. So basically, our perfect guest, someone who can actually verify David's stories.
Nah, some of them are true. Some of them are.
We'll see about that. Dietrich Enns, welcome to Pacific Swings.
Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate you guys bringing me on the podcast. And I'm here to just fact check all of Dave's crazy stories.
What age are you now? So how old are you? Where you're playing in with the Toledo Mud Hens, I think the team is called, right?
Yeah. So I'm 34. This is my 14th professional season. And I got drafted back in 2012 by the New York Yankees. Spent probably parts of 5-6 years with them, and then got traded at the deadline in 2017 to the Minnesota Twins. And then shortly thereafter made my major league debut with the Twins. And was with them for about 1.5 years. Then went to the San Diego Padres organization, pitched with El Paso in AAA there for the whole year. And then was with the Seattle Mariners before COVID hit and got released. Spent about 6 weeks in indie ball that summer, and then got signed by the Rays for 1.5 years. And then got the opportunity to go overseas and spent 3 years over there. So that was a great opportunity to play in Japan and Korea. Now I find myself back in America pitching with the Tigers organization in Toledo.
Yeah, so I mean, Dietrich's had an unbelievable career, and he's had to fight through a lot of stuff to get to where he's been. So I want to bring you back to Japan real quick. First of all, I remember I was struggling when you got that hit in Tokyo Dome, and I was just like, what the heck? Like, this guy rakes. Like, if he can get a hit, I can't get a hit. Like, we might just have to have a position change or something. We might need a first baseman for Seibu right now. Dietrich's batting 1,000. But anyway, I remember my first day in Japan. It's kind of crazy. Like, you land there. The airport's a little different. You're in Tokyo. You drive all the way to Tanashi. What were your thoughts? You were there a year before me. What were your thoughts when you got to the airport, when you got to Tanashi, where you were staying? Was there panic? Like, what were you thinking?
No, it's going to Japan. Like, it's the long flight, big travel day, and then you get there and you're just kind of eyes wide open, like trying to take it all in. For the very first time, you don't know what to expect. Luckily, my wife was there with me, so we had each other to kind of lean on. But yeah, you get to Tanashi Station, and you're in a whole different culture. You can't read the signs on all the streets and stuff like that. I mean, we were lucky we had a McDonald's right across the street, so there was some familiarity to back home, but that was really it. So you just have to kind of just immerse yourself in the culture and trying to be open-minded with everything, and just trying to learn something new. You're learning something new every day on how to just get around, how to get to the field, how to communicate with people at a restaurant, how to communicate with your coaches and teammates. So just try to soak it all in. And the craziest thing, I think, was it was like our 3rd or 4th day in Japan. We're staying in Tanashi, and there was like a huge earthquake that was like rattling the apartments. And like, I had never experienced, being from the Midwest, I had never experienced an earthquake before. And apparently they're pretty common in Japan.
Yeah.
on the lower scale of things. But this one was a pretty big one. I want to say off of the island of off of like Hokkaido. And so like it was out in the ocean, but like you could feel the ripple
Yeah.
effects pretty strong in Tokyo. And like our ceiling lights were like shaking back and forth. And I like we're on like the 10th floor of the building. And so I'm like,
Wow.
I don't know what to do. It's like shaking. My wife wakes me up because I was sleeping. And she's like, what is going on? And so we were kind of freaking out. I was like getting ready to like run downstairs to like get out of the building because I was like, I don't know if this building's going to come down or not. But then we got some messages from like team officials and they're like, you okay? Do you feel that? And I was like, oh yeah. Like, so that was like kind of like something and then you feel it like we felt a couple throughout the year, but like we'd be sitting there watching TV or just doing something and like you just feel a little rumble and you're like, is that an earthquake? Like, I think it was like a little minor one. So that was kind of like a introduction to like the first week we were there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. You don't show up in Japan and you're like, oh yeah, there's lots of earthquakes. I got to get on different trains and try to find my way around, not knowing the language, not being able to ask directions. At what point did you feel like you were like, oh yeah, like I feel like I can probably get around here. I have more confidence in my ability to get around here without my interpreter, without help.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely took a few weeks to just get to the field, figure out where I'm going, how to use like the maps and stuff, and just find the right route on the trains, get into the field and stuff. It definitely takes a few weeks. So there is that like adjustment period. But after that, I felt honestly pretty comfortable getting around. I thought it was pretty simple once you get the hang of it to get around. And by the end of my time in Japan, like didn't need um, anybody get around. My wife would go into Tokyo or go, field, no problem. We could get around. Like I honestly probably know how to get around Tokyo better than I know how to get around like some cities in America. Just because
100%.
it's pretty simple. Like once you get the hang of it. So yeah, no, we did a bunch of exploring and around the city when we had some time. So that was good. We just tried to get out as much as we could.
Yeah. I mean, Dietrich, he is married. His first year, he did not have a kid there, so they did a lot of exploring. Second year, had their first child, and they did not. It's a lot harder. Me and him are in the same spot where it's a lot harder to explore when you have a kid that's under the age of 2, So it's hard to get them on the train. It's hard to kind of move around and navigate the city. Also in my head, I was like, all right, I'm gonna hop on a train and that train's gonna take me straight to where I need to go. And that's just not reality, Trains, you have to hop off, transfer, kind of walk over top. So if you miss a transfer, you're waiting there for a little while and can kind of throw off your whole trip. In order to get to the field, we needed to take the train. And that was different because on the way there, it's not too bad. You're just kind of on your work commute. No one's getting to the field at 1, 2 in the afternoon. But on the way home, it's a lot different because you're riding home with all the fans. Talk about the train rides home from the Seibu Dome.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because being not Japanese, like you just kind of stick out from the crowd, and so like they know you're a player, so you're getting like a lot of looks and a lot of people coming up to you asking for pictures and autographs, which I thought was super cool, and the fans were all super nice. After a bad game, you just kind of want to keep to yourself and not talk to anybody, but no, I always tried to just the fans were always super just friendly and want to just get to know you and get a picture. So yeah, taking the train home was fun. In the summertime it got a little crowded and hot on the trains, and you're just all sweaty. But yeah, no, it was a great experience to ride the trains with the fans and just kind of experience their kind of enthusiasm for the team.
Let's sort of talk about how this actually happens, though, because I think most fans think about it as some sort of romantic decisions, like I want to go and experience Japanese baseball. But I think the reality is sort of chaos, right? Can you walk us through the 48 hours when your agent calls and all of a sudden, the opportunity to go pitch in Japan becomes real?
Yeah, I was just coming off the season with the Tampa Bay in the big leagues, and the opportunity came calling, and my wife and I thought it was a great opportunity to go experience Japan and just a different style of baseball and a different country. So we jumped at it, and then leading after you kind of sign on the dotted line, then you're like, okay, now what? How do we prepare? But how do we prepare for what's coming? And the team did a great job of like kind of laying out the groundwork of how things were going to operate early in the season and like how to get over there. But like there's a lot more than just like signing on the contract and then like flying to Japan a few months later. Like you got to get work visas and passports. So there's a lot of paperwork that's involved to get over there. That the team does a lot with us to really prepare us document wise and stuff like that. So it made it pretty easy to get over there. But still, there's just a few more steps in the process that you're not really used to, but that maybe some of the Latin players in America have experienced as well, and foreign players, because they have to go through a similar process to get their work visa just to be able to come over here and play and do that. So have a different perspective on like the foreign players now after going over there.
I remember just how fast KBO MPB sign people is just crazy. It's like all of a sudden, like you're just all right, going about your off-season program, thinking who am I going to sign with in the States? What's going to happen? Am I going to get a big league deal? Am I going to get a minor league deal? And there's teams like, oh, we'll give them this, we'll give them that. And then all of a sudden a KBO team or an MPB team come in and they're like, hey, we'll give you like a ton of money to come over here, like way more than you're going to get in a minor league deal. But we want to know now, like you got 12 hours, but like that 12 hours, it's in the morning for them. So it's at like 9 at night for you. Yeah. And it's just full panic. All right, I got to talk to my wife. I got to do this. I got to see this.
Yeah.
We're having a kid. We got to go get our passports. Like it's just a lot going on. So like, did you ever have that full blown panic because you have to make that this like life-changing decision for a year? Or were you like, okay, like I think we can do this? How was that first year, I guess? Because the first year is the big one.
Yeah, no, I think my agent really helped out with that because he, kind of laid the groundwork maybe with the team in those conversations to buy me some time just to make that decision, because it is a big decision to move your family across the world. So it's not something that you want to make a rash, quick decision. You want to think about it and kind of think through all the options. So yeah, credit to my agent for kind of laying those groundwork. I didn't feel super rushed, but it is quicker. You don't have months to think about it. It's like you got less than a week. So, you really have to have those conversations quickly and kind of know what you want to do, or because they do act a lot quicker than the teams in the MLB. They like to take their time, go to the winter meetings and stuff like that. Whereas the Asian teams kind of want to know before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, they honestly, it feels like they have kind of a competition to see who can have the best foreign players for that year. My next question, let's move on to baseball and the training over in Japan. What would you say about the training in regards to, I was on the hitting side, the fielding side, you're on the pitching side, like the attention to detail for them and the work ethic?
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's a little bit, it's different than how we go about it. It's more, I would say, probably rep based focus, where they're just, they're getting in a ton of work, and then they're, getting it till it's like perfect. And then they're going to keep going. Whereas I would say here, it's more about just like quality reps and the recovery, just being recovered, where they're getting a lot of quantity into just of the reps and the throws and stuff like that. Like I've seen guys throw bullpens over 100, 150 pitches, where it's just like, that's something that you just don't see over here, with American pitchers. Like a long bullpen in America is maybe 40 pitches, 50 pitches, in the off season, but in season, it's probably a lot less than that, where spring training guys are ripping 150 pitch bullpens, but they're just trying to work on, their craft and their repeatability of their mechanics and the reps and stuff like that. And so it's a little bit different, but to each their own. Like they have a way of going about it, and they're trying to get the best out of their abilities as well.
Was there a sort of moment, though? Was there anything that stood out to you in Japan where you went, why is this not more of a thing like universally? Because I know they have their rep-based thing that you just alluded to, and they take it maybe to the extreme, but they do that because it's like practice till you can't get it wrong anymore.
Right.
And it feels like fundamental baseball just means something else, means something different in Japan. But was there anything that maybe you took with you from that period in Japan where you went, why don't we all just do that? Because it's actually helped me.
Yeah, no, just the attention to detail in all their work, in the throws, just, in the stretching, in the throws, and the PFPs. Like, they do a lot of PFPs over there, but it really means something over there because they play, so many tight games. Every game is tight. So, one error that can lead to a couple runs could be the difference in a game. They're really attention to detail about that and just getting it right and not being a liability. As far as pitchers go, not being a liability on the mound, being able to cut because you're going to be fielding your position a lot more in Japan and Korea than you would be in America because that's just part of their game and their style of play. So, that's just how it is. So you have to be able to really be focused on that and not take plays off.
Was there anything that surprised you, sort of training regimen wise, that you thought, well, I've just never made this movement in my life, or because I know some of the Japanese pitchers are really athletic, like they cannot, they like you just said, they feel their position to the extent where I cannot see the same thing happening in MLB. Was there anything that sort of surprised you where you went, I've actually never done this before?
One thing that's I would say something that you just don't see here at all and is starting pitchers on the day that they're starting in their games, they come out for early workouts like with the relievers during like BP and they're full on long tossing then at like 2 o'clock for like a 6 or 7 o'clock game. And then they go in and take like a break and then they come out and do their pregame warm up and then, go and pitch in the game that night. Whereas in America, the starting pitchers don't come out till half hour before a game, do their throwing, do their pregame pen, and then get in the game. So that was something different. And luckily for me, like they didn't, force me to do that. It was like, they wanted to keep me on my routine that like to keep me as comfortable as possible. But that's just something that's built into their baseball culture that they don't think is, weird to them or different. That's just how they go about it. They kind of feel things out early and then kind of take a break in the middle of the day and then pitch that night. So I would say that's one of the biggest differences I've seen on the pitching side of things.
And then when you think about it, the pitch count can get up quite a bit there. Like casually, you'll watch an NPB game, and it almost feels like I'm not paying attention because I'll see a pitcher and he'll have 134 pitches in the eighth. That's still the starting pitcher, right? Okay.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Because did you feel like you had to stick to your pitch count that you were used to in the US, or did you feel like you could probably expand a little bit more than you otherwise would have in the States, or what was that like for you?
I'd say my pitch count for me with the foreign pitchers, they kept us all usually around 100. They didn't really push our limits like more than that. Even though we were on, the week schedule in Japan, we were pitching once a week. Because that's kind of how it was is in college baseball here. You'll see some starters in college baseball. You're only starting once a week. So some of the pitch counts, I remember throwing 125 in college and going 9 innings or 8 innings, 115 pitches, things like that. So that wasn't like uncommon to me just because you have the extra day or two of rest on the back end. But yeah, you see the Japanese starters a little bit more regularly pushing those limits of the pitch count because of the extra rest and stuff like that, which you just don't see here in America anymore. But as far Japan and Korea, they always kept the foreign pitchers typically around 100 pitches, and it wasn't unless you're really in the zone with like the game and you're into the ninth, like that you're going to go much higher than that.
Yeah, I remember just the pitchers in general. Like I don't know what the reason was behind. I'm sure part of it was they get the extra rest and their arms are built up for it. But I think another part of it was just like the depth of the bullpen sometimes. Like if you have your ace that's going to pitch once a week, it's like, well, I think his 130th pitch is going to be better than maybe our bullpen arm. So I'm just going to keep rolling him until it looks like he can't get outs at that point. So that's what it felt like, at least. Sometimes facing some guys, I'm like, gosh, I don't think I'll see Yamamoto in the ninth. And sure enough, Yamamoto's back out there like in the ninth inning throwing his 136th pitch,
Yeah.
They just play the matchups. They're like, well, we think that guy's got the best chance of getting more outs, and I think that's what they end up doing. But they were definitely much more proactive about making sure the foreign guys were healthy. So let's slide on over to Korea. Baseball differences, like physical baseball differences. Because not everyone understands that, like, there's the MLB ball, then we have the NPB ball, then we have the KBO ball. How did those differentiate? Like in actual like feeling and everything, and how did they move differently, and how did you have to kind of adjust to the movement profiles, like what pitches were working for you in certain places that maybe weren't working in Japan and in Korea, like what pitches worked better in those places that weren't working as good. Yeah. So there's my question.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
questions there, David.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. So I would say the biggest difference is the MLB to both the Japanese ball and the Korean ball is the texture. The seams are a lot lower on the MLB ball. The texture of the baseball, the actual baseball, the leather is a lot slicker. So, that's why you'd see guys in America trying to use like stick or anything for grip because the balls are like slippery. So, just to get a grip on the baseballs. And they're just not as consistent of a feel of the ball in the MLB. Whereas you get to Japan, every ball is the exact same because they don't rub them up. They just pull them out of the box and they're made super consistently. So like they come pre-tacked a little bit. There's a grip to it that is it's not sticky, but it's just tacky. They're just very consistent. The seams I'd say are a little bit wider and higher, and then you get to the Korean ball, and it's the texture of the ball, the tackiness of the ball, I would say is pretty similar to Japanese ball, but the seams are thinner and they're raised even more. So it's almost a little bit more like a college baseball. So you can really kind of rip seams even more with the Korean ball. But I would say the Korean baseballs mirror the MLB balls in how like live they are. They jump a little bit when you hit them because they're a little bit harder. Whereas the Japanese ball, they're kind of in a dead ball era right now, so they're kind of killing the baseball. So like they're trying to limit the run production there. So I think a lot of those the style of play factors in all three leagues kind of go off of how the baseballs are produced and made because Japanese balls are dead, trying to keep the scoring down. So like the hitters' swings are built a certain way. They're not built for like the power as much. And whereas the Korean style of play mirrors a little bit more towards the MLB because the balls can jump, so guys can hit more homers, guys can hit balls in the gap a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, as a hitter, obviously, I noticed the differences. Big league ball definitely carries the best. The KBO ball carries the second best. And you could definitely know, like, the two balls that were carrying the best, they were also moving a little more when you threw breaking balls. Where the NPB ball, because of the seams, and it felt like almost the tackiness, like, you'd get like a 92, 93 mile an hour fastball that you're under because they spin it just so efficiently, and it kind of feels like it's rising. But that rise almost, when you're hitting that ball, it almost creates that drag in the outfield where it kind of dies at the warning track, it felt like. So I mean, from a hitter's perspective, totally get what you're saying. I didn't have to really change anything, though, because, like, the ball is the biggest piece of equipment for you, Like, you have to completely – like, I remember Tinoco, he had to completely change how he was throwing his two-seamers because they just weren't moving the same way as what he was used to.
Right. Yeah, they do move a little bit differently, but yeah, you can really spin those both Asian balls pretty efficiently and really rip on the seam. So I thought the spin rates were a little bit higher over in Asia, and so the movement just kind of goes off of that a little bit. But I also think the MLB balls are slightly bigger.
They do feel bigger.
They're I'd have to you really have to measure it, but just based off feel, maybe it's just because the seams are lower. But I would say that the ball feels slightly bigger in your hand than like the Asian balls in MPB and KBO.
But we're talking about measuring balls here, but it's like someone had to say it. No, but I think the sort of difference is it's sort of insane because when you talk about your life as a pitcher, you've thrown essentially the same ball for all your career. And then you go to Japan, you're 30 years old, and suddenly, like, what you're used to isn't exactly the same thing anymore. Like, I don't think that's talked about enough because I'd be like, give me, like, I work as a filmmaker, so I use the same camera. I've used the same camera for a few years now, and I'll alternate cameras. But there's a moment of trying to figure out what the camera does and like respond to different buttons. But when it's like the baseball, the way you throw the baseball is your livelihood, right? It's going to depend how much you get paid. It's depending on career opportunities. Like, I can mess up with my camera once, and that's fine. I'll just delete that footage and do it again. Like, when you throw a pitch, that's it, right? But did you feel like you struggle with that when you're the start of your career in Japan in particular? Like, did you really have to literally get to grips with it?
Yeah. So that was like one of the first things I asked for after I like signed the contracts was like, can you send me a dozen baseballs so that I can just really start playing catch with these balls? Because I know they are different. So I think that's a big thing, just playing catch with it, because every throw you make in catch play is something you can learn as an opportunity to learn from it and figure out how your pitches move. Because as a pitcher, that's really, what you're trying to do out there is make your pitches move and know what they're going to do. So then you can kind of game plan that way. So if you don't know what they're going to do, then it makes pitching a lot harder. You're trying to go for, accuracy, but you're trying to like get your stuff as best as it can be. But also, I mean, the most important thing is knowing where the ball's going at a certain time. Like, should I throw this cutter on the outside lane, or do I need to put it more on the plate for it to get down, below the zone or something like that? Just different like ins and outs of that. Like, where should I start the curveball to land it in the zone? Where can I start it to,
Exactly.
And so if these balls are breaking differently, then, you're going to be wasting pitches. So just getting the feel as quickly as possible. So, just really being focused on the little things in catch play, I think we're big, and just getting that in the off season to help get more reps in the off season before even stepping foot in Japan or Korea were huge for me to get a feel. So I didn't feel like the adjustment period was as big, but luckily, you have spring training for that too. So it's
when the stats don't count. So
right. You're exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, you have that adjustment period to work on stuff, and that's why you need those 6 weeks of spring training to build up, and not only just build up your arm and your endurance and your body, but also to kind of get a feel of the baseball.
Yeah. Here's my question. You obviously got a contract over in Japan, and you played really well in order to do that. Like, they're taking the top players that were kind of up and down between the big leagues and AAA that prior year. What made you really successful in the U.S. and then you ended up going over there and were like, dang, this is not working here. I need to make an adjustment.
And I think I first got on the radar with the teams in Asia, like maybe in 2017, 18. But then, a couple years went by, didn't really hear it much. But then doing some mechanical stuff to get some velo increases, I think helped. And just not a ton of opportunities that I've had in the big league. So I think the teams in Asia looked at me as a guy that they could go get. So like, I think that the increase in velo definitely helped me to get over there. And then my first year in Japan went really well, and I relied heavily on like fastball cutter or fastball slider, and was able to do well there. But then second year struggled a little bit with getting guys out the same way, because these guys are good hitters, and they're able to make the adjustments, and you face the same teams so many times. So you got to find different ways to get guys out. You can't just be a 2-pitch pitcher over there. So that really challenges starting pitchers, especially to throw a third pitch, to throw a fourth pitch, even a fifth pitch, because you're facing a guy maybe 30 times a year, as opposed to in America, you might face a guy like 7 or 8 or 6 or 7 times if you face him twice, but you're facing these guys so many times. So you have to really get creative as a pitcher of how to get guys out, how to read swings. And I just didn't do that as well at my second year in Japan as I did on my first year of mixing it up and executing and things like that. But then went to Korea, and I felt like I was able to expand that and add more pitches and just sequence better and execute at a higher level, and really just have more freedom to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it is hard because you're facing guys way more. And like, the more we see you, the harder it is. The easier it is for us to hit, harder it is for you guys to get us out, because we know the pitch repertoire. So you definitely need to add things and change views and stuff. So it's just tough. I think the biggest, coolest thing about Korea and Japan, the fans, like by far the coolest part. People don't realize it until they've been there and they've experienced a stadium in the KBO or in the NPB. For me, I remember our first game in the stadium at the Bay Stars. It's a packed stadium on a spring training game, and I'm like, holy smokes, like, this is crazy how loud this is, and how like they're all singing in unison. I had to get used to it. You're used to the blank noise of the big leagues, but it's a buzz, and like you don't really notice anything. But when they're all singing your name and your song in unison, like, did that take time to get used to? And what are your thoughts on how Korea did it and how Japan did it?
Yeah, no, I thought the fans had pretty similar like styles with like the bands. Like the Korea, they have like DJs and cheerleaders on the field.
Korea's a party.
Korea's a big party, and Japan is too. But Japan has like more of like the fan chants and like almost like instruments on like drums and instruments that do the like the noise and just bring the energy to the stadium. But yeah, you get so much energy from from the fans that it's even in spring training, it is really crazy and it's hard to replicate. Even in the big leagues, I feel like the energy is not there for a regular season game. It could be more for the playoffs, but it like every game in Asia feels like a playoff game
Yeah.
based on the fans, just the swings of momentum in like a base hit or a walk is like,
Completely agree.
it's just completely different than what you see here. Like here, minor league for sure. Like, you give up a hit, it's just like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, on to the next at bat. Like there, it's like, it can change the whole momentum of a game by, one play or an error or a walk or a run score. You just feel so much energy, and it really is something to experience because it brings it out of the players too. Like I just feel like I pitch more like with like more passion, like in those games because the fans are just giving you so much energy, and it was just something really cool that like you don't always get here, but yeah, it's something that's really cool.
So to add on that, which is kind of crazy, I had them cheering for me when I was playing, when I was at the plate.
Yeah.
You kind of have them cheering against you because typically it's the batting
hitters.
team that's cheering, that's doing. How is that? Because I'm like, these guys are behind me. Let's go. Like, how's it? You trying to shut them up? Or are you trying to like make them be quiet and put them back in their seats?
Yeah, for sure. You're trying to have quick innings because you don't want to hear those songs like on repeat, the whole time because their scoring song, like you're giving up runs or you have a long at bat to their best hitter, like they're blasting that music like louder and louder with each pitch, and then it's like 8-9 pitches into the at bat, and you're like, all right, like you just you can feel like, all right, like you're trying to stop the momentum, but like sometimes there's nothing you can do, and you're just like, this guy's about to get a big hit off of you in this situation, and like there's
no
nothing
way
you can
around
do
it
because you have this like music ringing in the back of your head, and you're just like, come on, like, and so but it is cool on whether you're on both sides of the ball to experience it for sure.
That's awesome though, because I think people don't realize that I haven't watched Japanese baseball. Like the fans are so respectful of each other because if the one team is at bat, the other fans will stay quiet. Essentially, they'll occasionally make a bit of noise. They'll applaud you if you do a nice pitch, but literally that's all you'll get. It won't be until much later. Like if you I don't know, you throw 6 or 7 inning shutout and you walk off the field, you'll get a standing ovation. Great, they'll absolutely cheer for you. But from a hitter and pitcher perspective, it's just different. But let me ask you a question though, because you've seen talent now both in Korea and Japan. Is there one teammate that you thought like, oh, what a player, like, or even a player that you faced, like where you went, okay, this guy is just, I haven't seen this before. Is there anyone that stands out to you? I mean, you don't have to mention David. Like that's fine. Like
he punched my ticket.
Dave was just,
I hit a foul homer off him, and then he struck me out.
And Dave can attest to this. Dave didn't get to see it, but my first year, so Seibu is known for like being a pitcher's park, and it's just a tough place to hit. But my first year, Yamakawa with the Seibu Lions, he hit like 44 homers, and it was just like the next closest guy in the whole league was like 20. So he like doubled the guy's homers. And Dave had a great year that year when he played with Seibu and hit a ton of homers. So like he can, but
44
he can even
is wild.
But he can even attest to that's like twice as many as the next guy is just insane. So seeing that was just so impressive because like he just he would swing so hard. It's a swing you don't really see typically in the States, but like he had such good like bat to ball skills too that like he could put balls out no problem. So that was something impressive. And then on the defensive side of things, like Gendar, captain in the defensively, it just seemed like he never made an error and he got to every ball. So you're just like, please hit it to short because it's an out because he's so smooth. He's maybe the best shortstop I've ever seen with the glove.
Agreed.
And the world got to see it in the WBC, and even with a broken like finger, he was still like playing short. Like in his throwing hand, he was still playing short with a broken finger. So like it was just incredible. Like the talent that he had, and I had really good teammates in Korea that were super talented, like a bunch of young talented guys in Korea, and our captain was also like a defensive wizard. Ojiwan was amazing in Korea to he just went and got a replay, and then when playing in Korea, my American teammate Austin Dean had an incredible season last year that he's just getting better and better over there. He he hits for average, hits for power. He led the league in RBI, so it just seemed like he would always come up big in a spot like that. So, but I think there's talent across both leagues. So, both offensively and defensively, pitching wise, like in both leagues. That it's really impressive. It really is eye opening. I wouldn't say either league is as deep as like you get over here, just because there's less teams and there's less players, so that's gonna happen. But like, no, you're just wowed by how young some of these kids are over there and how good they are, and you're just like, there's really talent all over the world that and if you're good enough, like teams will find you and you're going to get the opportunity to showcase that talent.
For sure. So you kind of touched on guys that you played with.
Mm-hmm.
Who was just one guy in the NPB that you faced that you were like, dang, that's a tough out, and one guy in the KBO?
Oh man, in the MPB, let's see here. Probably the toughest out was Kondo.
He
was with the Fighters my first year, and he was dealing with a little bit of injury, so like he was kind of up and down, but like he still hit like 350, and he's got power, and he's a little guy, so it's like his zone is tight, and so it's like he just fights off good pitches, and then he gets his pitch and he smashes it. So like that was one guy that really impressed me, and then he signed a big deal with SoftBank the next year, so I faced him, and SoftBank's like like a huge super team over there. They have just a ton of offense, really good players. And then in the KBO, and they have this young kid, Do Young Kim, he was the MVP he was the MVP last year in Korea. He got me on an opposite field grand slam last year. I think I got him to strike out a couple times, and was able to like have some good at bats against him. But like in a big spot, in a big situation, he just went Apo Taco at me in Gwangju in front of their home crowd and went nuts. And this kid's like 20 years old, had like almost a 40-40 season last year. So I think he's going to be a superstar in baseball. In the KBO, he already is, and I think he's going to make his way over to MLB eventually too.
I love how your mind goes. Yeah, I gave him, an opposite grand slam like home run.
Yeah, you just don't forget something like that in a big spot. Like it's just one of those that just kind of stick out. And
like,
you're like,
I struck him out a few times, but it's that one pitch.
Yeah, it doesn't even out.
Talking about pitching though, because we've seen this happen now with obviously Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki coming over from the NPB at a relatively young age, for Japanese standards, and doing really, really well in MLB. Like the skill set just transitions. I think shortly we'll have our next wave of especially Japanese pitchers coming over to MLB, Tatsuya Imai being one. I just want to touch on him briefly because it's not that he just has 17K games every week. Well, it sort of seems like he does. It's just, I think, one of the most talented pitchers I've ever seen play. I was lucky enough to see him play in May earlier this year, where he put up, obviously, 8 shutouts. So that's all he seems to does. But can you just talk about the sort of pitching talent that you saw firsthand? Because you're practicing with these guys, man. You saw them every day.
Yeah, I saw that game that Imai had the other day, and I was like speechless with like, where he's come as a player. Seeing him a few years ago, was a guy that had all the talent in the world, and he would struggle with command issue at times, like, but he would always finish his own game. Like he just pitched the whole time. Like they would always leave him in there. He'd throw 140 pitches, but he might have a few walks, but like he could get through it, and he could always punch tickets. And he had the velo, and he had the stuff. And I think he's just gotten better and better as he's gotten older. And he still throws extremely hard. He's got a great slider, and he can mix it up with a fork. To be able to put together the season he's having now is impressive. That he's like cleaned up his command, and now he's just completely dominating the whole league. So he has aspirations too to come to MLB too. So I'll be excited to see where he goes. And there was so many talented pitchers in Japan that saw. And when I was there, Kono was also a great pitcher. He just was like our ace and our captain, and would just go complete game after complete game. And he had to do a little bit different style than Imai did. And then there was Taida, who like was also nasty. He was the best setup guy in the league my first year, and he was throwing 96 to 100, like slide step, 100 miles an hour. It was just insane. And then he wanted to be a starter, and then the next year he was one of the best starters. He was a top 5 starter in the whole league. Just the versatility that these guys have, and just the ability that these guys have to throw multiple pitches, and just sequence the way that sequences are. It's different. So something you take as a pitcher. See how they pitch guys. Because it's different than how you would pitch guys. And so seeing what's effective and what's not was something really cool to see firsthand. And to be able to practice with those guys day in and day out was really cool.
I remember facing Imai and Tyra in spring training. And
how did that work out for you?
Imai, I actually walked against, but I was just like, it's a good thing he threw 4 balls because there's no way I was putting a ball forward. Like,
Yeah.
the combination
Yeah.
just not being ready to, like, it was early in spring training, and he's just disgusting. Like, the slider moves like this. It's this big. Like, it moves so much. His fastball is electric, and it runs up and in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a slider that nobody can hit. He
No,
can
it's not
continue to
hittable.
keep throwing it, and he can tunnel it well with his fastball.
Yeah, and the
like,
fastball moves the opposite way, and it's just
Mhm.
he is just so good.
Yeah.
Tyra, honestly, like, he's hard to time because he's so quick to home. So I struggled with him, but it was a 1 at bat struck out against him. Good job.
Yeah.
Tyra.
The
But
thing
yeah,
that
those
impressed me
2
about
guys
him
are,
was he was able to throw 4 pitches all like well. They were all plus pitches. So, I thought that was super impressive for, they were both super young when I first started playing with them, and they've, I think, only got better.
yeah, they're unbelievable. But I think that goes to show, like, I remember them telling us that, they're like, in Japan, like, the best athletes, we make pitchers, where in the States, typically your best athletes are going to be somewhere up the middle, second base, shortstop, center field. Like, it's not usually the pitchers. So it's just totally different how they look at it.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, because they got a wave of pitching talent going through Japan right now. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we could honestly keep firing names because there's probably too many to mention. Like, we're
Uh-huh.
obviously focused on Seibu now, but there's talent that's just, it seems like we'll have a wave of Japanese pitchers that are essentially MLB ready very shortly. And it's just a matter of when they get over and if they always want to come over. I think there's also definitely the sort of loyalty aspect to it, but we'll see because it's exciting to watch. Last question we have for you, Dietrich. And we can get philosophical here if you want to.
Okay.
If you could go back, because you were 30 at the time when you got on a plane to Japan for the first time, if you could go back and give yourself, sort of bit of advice, sort of a send off to say, well, I don't know where you go with the answer, but what would it be?
Just embrace your time there, I would say, which me and my wife did. We look back on our time in Asia, in Japan and Korea, very fondly as some of the best years that we've had. So it's something that, we'll never forget. We want to go back and just enjoy the culture there, and the people there. It's, well, they're so kind and friendly. That's something that really sticks out, not even on the baseball side of things, but just like, just the people there are, some really great people, and they have a beautiful country that is something so cool, and I wish it wasn't so far away. I wish it was a little bit easier of a trip to get there, because it's a little bit more of a destination place now. Or here, yeah, we definitely have plans to go back, but just embracing the day to day, and just getting out and seeing the different part of the world that you might never thought you would have seen before. And I'm really happy that we did.
It's a great answer.
That is a great answer, because, I mean, for me personally, I would love to go vacation there.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Japan, go to Korea. Like, it's 2 beautiful places, tons of beautiful cities.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize it is hard to live there full time and do your job there. It's just difficult, it's just kind of a culture shock. But to go there and just see all the beautiful places, it's unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know if you're going to get that second contract there. You don't know anything really. So just to enjoy the time you have there and try to see as many cool places as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and the food. Just try as many different food and just find.
Buddy,
Food. Yeah, the food was. I still have dreams of some of the food over there, the steakhouses and the sushi, and just like, it just is so good.
Yeah, Dietrich brought me and Mark, one of the other foreign guys, to the little steakhouse across the street from us, and I think we still owe him some money from that. He took us out that first night.
Yeah, no, that was that place. We spent pretty much every night there after games. So, because they'd be closing at like 4 a.m. So, they were open late, and they're great. It was one of the only places still open after games.
Yep.
So it was a great spot to just hang out, get some really great food, and just very convenient right next to our building.
Do you ever find yourself bowing to people in the US? First week you come back and you go, arigato. I mean, thank you.
A little bit. Definitely the umpires in the game. I'm trying to get on their good side. So just try to, no, definitely, yeah, some of the culture things I've definitely just kind of adapted to, and just try to be polite to everybody. And I do find myself bowing and, saying thank you and everything. So it's good.
Really awesome. Dietrich, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And that's all for this episode of Pacific Swings, where we bring you the baseball stories that happen when players cross the Pacific and discover the game isn't just the game anymore. David's lived it, I asked the questions, and together we're bridging two baseball worlds, one conversation at a time.
I'll ask a couple questions.
Just a couple, that's fine.
Subscribe where you get your podcasts. Tell someone who loves baseball. Tell someone who loves Japan. Tell someone who loves Korea. Tell the KBO fans and the NPB fans, go subscribe. Appreciate you guys listening. Arigatou gozaimasu. Kamsahamnida.
What was that?
Just thank you in Japanese and Korean.
Show off.